Hello, welcome to History in Lowell. I'm Maritza. I'm joined by my history partner in crime, Bob Forrant. And as always, Bob introduces me to the coolest people around. And we've got some really awesome guests today. First, I have to introduce my friend Allison Horrocks of the Lowell National Historical Parks. But we also have joining us today the creators of something you didn't even know was happening, the MillGirls musical. And welcome, ladies. So we have Jess McLeod, we have Samantha Beach, and we have Diana Lawrence. Welcome, welcome. It is so great to have you on the show today.
Yay, so happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We talk about the MillGirls all the time, obviously, because it's a show about history in Lowell. And that is very much our like front runner, right, of Lowell's history. We talk about it everywhere on the show, in the parks, all over Lowell, right? But now we're going to tell the story in a different way that we haven't seen before. So let's get right into it. Why are we writing a musical about the MillGirls in Lowell? What? Who came up with this idea?
So many reasons. We're writing the musical for so many reasons, Maritza. Hi, I'm Jess McLeod. I'm a director, and I am based in New York. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and then I spent about 10 years in Chicago, which is where I met Diana and Sam. The musical actually happened because of this book, Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. Which I was looking through, as I am wont to do, and I found the following sentence. I'd never heard about the MillGirls and was reading about how they organized, and the sentence was, "The strikers marched through the streets of Lowell singing." And I stopped the book and I put it down, and I thought, that's it. That's a musical. And that's the musical that's for, it's not just a great story, but that is the musical that allows us to actually fill in the many, many steps in between ingenue and old character lady, which is all there ever is in most musicals, because most musicals are written by men and by white men. And so we were off and running, and I enlisted the amazing Diana and the amazing Sam to work on it with me. And we have been workshopping it over the last couple of years at various theaters in Chicago. Sometimes with young people. We recently did a great workshop with the students of North Central College in Illinois that really helped us get further, and was a lovely bright spot in all of these quarantines to be able to dig in and work on the show and talk about connecting and the fight for gender equality. The show has. What's notable, I think, is that the show has changed, especially in the last couple of years. That I think originally we were basing a story on history, on the story of Sarah Bagley and Harriet Farley, and coming up with some fictional characters as well, based on stories that we were reading. And then the 2016 election happened, and Hillary Clinton campaigned and lost, and Christine Blasey Ford testified, and Brett Kavanaugh was voted in anyway. And then, that's to say nothing of the events of the last year. And as each of those things has happened, what we have come to is that it's not enough for us to just create a well-made musical that hits story points in the way that musicals traditionally do, but it actually is on us to create a musical in which every scene and every theatrical approach gives you access to the experience of being a woman, and a young woman, that you've never seen on stage before. And so we've really worked to do that. Diana?
I was so excited when Jess asked me to work on this project. I love writing for women. I love singing with women and creating music for women and from a female perspective. And I first got my way into the show and the musical context of the show by visiting Lowell. I had the chance to visit Lowell pretty early in our process. And was just transfixed by the sounds of the boot cotton factory, of the floor of the factory, and the phasing in and out of the machines. And really wanted to put that into the show, sort of the majesty of it and terror of it and amazing industry of it. And then also seeing what the women wore, reading so many of their pieces for the Lowell offering and the letters they wrote home, and hearing I could hear how they were both of their era and also so similar to women I know, so similar to women I grew up with, to people's daughters and mothers that we all know, and how could I create a musical language for the show that was both of the era and also undoubtedly modern, especially as these women become more and more aware of what the world is and isn't, what is available to them and not available to them, and what does it mean to push back against what people are expecting of them. And to ask for more, and to ask for what they truly feel they deserve. What does that musically, what does that sound like to ask for what you deserve? How much can a voice sort of open up and soar as it realizes what's really possible for you as a woman? So that's what I was really excited about in writing music for the show. And not just the individual journey of a woman, but what does it mean of a community of women exploring what it is that they could become, both for them individually and together.
Yes. What does it mean? And I feel like as you all are talking about this, I'm starting to feel that excitement. I can maybe hear the music a bit. And especially being a woman from Lowell, and I'm getting more and more excited as we talk about it. But Samantha, tell us more about the women and what intrigues you about these stories that you all are trying to tell. I'm just tagging in I'm like, yeah, we're all telling the story.
We're all telling. You are. Well, the team at Lowell has been telling this story for a long time. We're excited to help introduce it to more people. Yeah, I'm Sam, and I'm the book writer. I'm in Austin, Texas right now, but met these gals living in Chicago. And what was most exciting to me was to add something to the musical theater canon that had a bunch of great parts for young women that, like Jess mentioned, were complex and smart roles and not easily stereotyped or defined. And I'm married to a high school theater teacher. And so he's often looking for material where there's tons of girls coming out to audition, usually way more than boys. And we're often sticking them into these very narrow boxes to play. And so that was really inspiring to me. And then starting to dig into the history and the research and getting to know these women and realizing that this isn't any one girl's story. So we have some historical characters in our show, Sarah Bagley and Harriet Farley, but we actually follow a protagonist who is someone we made up based on a lot of the readings that we've done, because we wanted to watch one girl's journey who didn't set out to be an activist, didn't set out to change the world, watch her kind of get radicalized, become enlightened, learn what she deserved, and then fight for it. And so figuring out her story while still featuring Sarah and Harriet and watching them go on journeys has been a fun challenge. And then also, like Diana was mentioning, just looking at what was possible because all these girls were living together, because they were together 24/7, living together, working together, reading together. What was possible because of that dynamic that wouldn't have been possible for anyone to achieve on their own. So that's been really fun to dig into.
The idea of everybody living together, working together 24/7. When I'm teaching this at UMass Lowell, I refer to the boarding houses as breeding grounds of discontent. And I just can imagine as you just described it, right? All of this day to day, and some of it is grandiose and we need to change this, and others is just this food sucks. But it's all part of living, right? And having been able to see some of what you're all doing and being invited to listen in on the one of the earlier shows that you all did, and listening to the music, I feel I'm as equally excited as Maritza to see this all come into being.
Thanks, Bob. And also that aspect has been so important to just see on stage. There were so many stories of women being mean to each other and competing, usually over guy. Guess who writes those stories? Again, guys. And what we really wanted to do was focus on how being around each other, how these women transformed each other. Because we believe in that. It's happened to the three of us as we've gone on the journey with the show and also interacted with you all. And that's something we really felt deserved stage time.
Oh, I absolutely agree that it deserves stage time. I just want to say that I've been saying that we need a MillGirls musical for the longest time, and I'm so glad that it's happening. I remember I got to go to the boarding house with Bob a few months back, and there's that one section where you hear the girls talking, and it's supposed to be like they're in their bedroom talking, and it totally, like, it has that vibe of the breeding grounds for dissent, and like the radicalization of young girls, because these are young girls too. These are not just I think, when we're talking about what we're going to talk about for the show, we're thinking about, these are not women in our age groups. These are young women, and what that can look like. And I do believe telling this story is incredibly important. And as all of you have said, we can see ourselves in these stories, right? But is that a good thing, that we can see the modern woman in these stories from so long ago? And I think that might be even where Allison comes in, right? Helping with so much of the history behind the show. So do you want to talk about your role here?
Sure. So I think it's a testament to the good work they've done that it feels relevant. That is a story that has been told at the park for close to 40 years. It's a story that goes back, right? So when these women first started to organize, and I think notably they had allies, right? They had men who also saw that they had a lot to gain from this cause, and all over the state, people signed petitions together. There's a strategic reason why men's names are at the top of the petition, but it is also important that they were able to see that across class lines, they had something in common, right? They're all working too many hours. They all have too many commitments. And I think what is so beautiful about this musical is it captures something important about the need to be able to pause and think about what you're doing in life. And they've created this kind of amazing acoustic experience where the chaos of having to be surrounded by machines and machinery and people who talk all night. Think of a sleepover when no one would be quiet and you couldn't go to sleep. That's your life 7 days a week. And this kind of culture of noise where you can't know your own mind. The fact that they've made that relevant, I think, speaks to the quality of the material. The actual source material is a piece of paper that I don't think anyone has really cared to look at for decades. In itself, it's not inherently interesting or important, but they've taken this petition and they've said these complaints that these people had in 1845 might actually be complaints that you have about your own work situation, or the gender inequality that you face in your life, or the way that your problems are ignored, which I've just realized did not answer your question at all about what I'm doing here. But I'm a park ranger at Lowell, and I came to work at Lowell specifically because of the boarding house. I walked into there, I looked at the layout, and I said, I have to work here. And I do, thankfully. Don't worry, I don't do that everywhere. But I felt so drawn to this notion of the power of space. And it's interesting because it is a breeding ground for discontent. But to me, it's a place where women forged space where their bodies and their thoughts were important. And sometimes that was at the expense of other women who did all of their cooking, their cleaning, their laundry. But women historically have been bound to certain activities that they're stuck with doing, pretty much no matter who they are. And the boarding house for most of these people was a period in their life that was rare. They didn't do most of their own domestic work. And the freedom from that gives them freedom to actually think about other issues. So part of my role has just been thinking, talking with them. We all met over a Facebook Live, which is our COVID meet cute. And they said, we're writing a musical. And I said, oh, okay, that's wonderful. And part of what intrigued me was I love to connect with people for whom Lowell is not a hometown, but an interest. Because to me, those people have an investment that I think is always worth investigating with them. Like, I am also not from Lowell. So it's like, what motivates a person to want to fully understand this place? And how can we develop a relationship back and forth?
Absolutely. And then you roped in Bob, right? Of course, if you're going to talk about Lowell history, you can't talk about it without this guy.
I'm a easy mark for anybody that says they want to come to Lowell and look at the mill buildings and understand the history of the city a bit. I don't think I've ever said no, but this is one of the best yeses. Again, because I think that this is going to be a way to create an entry point for so many more people to actually think about this history, right? And we've had, again, right, the phenomenon of Hamilton and sort of through the men's lens, the American Revolution and the early birth of the country. And however, that's all played out, but that's a completely different story than this one. And this one's really just 20 or 25 years later in terms of its sort of development, right? But it gets missed if you only think through that lens of the typical way American history gets taught. We do tell the story. And being a history teacher, I'm always aware that we generally tend to tell the story through an elite men's eye view and an elite men's white eyes view. And so all these things get dropped out. And then we're left with puzzlement when things happen like, like Black Lives Matter and people wondering, well, why are people so angry? The better question would be, why aren't more people angry? If you see the history, right? And so I think that as this is going to take place and as this is going to arrive on the stage, it's going to shake people's thinking about sort of the founding of the country and who did the labor and sort of all of this in ways that typically just don't get taught. And so it's really, for me, again, as a history teacher, it's really exciting to be a part of the conversations that are taking place. And again, I'm amazed by the amount of research and work the three of you did to arrive at everything. And I don't understand how it works, right? I understand how, like, if I'm writing a book, I write a book, but the way that you assemble a musical, I'm learning as I'm listening to each of you talk about your role and whatever, and the collaborative process is just really incredible, but the length of time it takes, right? I think sometimes when I'm working on a book, it takes forever, but this really takes this has been, and then COVID gets in the way and complicates it even more. So it's exciting, and it's exciting to think about sort of what's going to happen in the next little while in Lowell, right, as this rolls out a bit more. So maybe we should touch on that before we, as typically usual when we do these shows, Maritza, we run out of time.
And it always happens. But as you said, we talk about these things oftentimes in the lens of men. And now we have these phenomenal women creating this phenomenal story about women in Lowell. And even better, Women's History Month is coming up. Something really cool is happening with this project. Who wants to tell us about it?
Our dream in the world where COVID safety protocols would have been waning at this point was to do something in person in the wonderful city of Lowell, and that doesn't seem like a good idea anymore. So instead, we said, great, how can we take that? How can we then use that as an opportunity to connect even more women through this story? And so what we've done is we are in the process of recording an interactive EP, which is a short little digital album of songs. And so we've got a couple of songs from the musical. I know historical musicals in Hamilton rather intimately because I was the resident director of Hamilton in Chicago for 2.5 years for most of its 3-year run, and had a great time and met a lot of amazing people in the process. Some of those people are going to be singing on our EP. I'll tease that and then reveal who that is when we come back to the show. And so it's 4 songs from the show that are stitched together with little bits of narrative and little bits of text from the show. And Allison has helped us create an incredible website that is going to launch on March 1st. And so the process will be go to the website, listen to the EP. Originally, this was envisioned as something you could listen to as you were walking through the park grounds, walking through Lucy Larkin Park, walking through the streets of Lowell, where the MillGirls would have worked and lived and shopped and marched. And instead, if you were in Lowell, you can totally still do that. And if you are not, you can do it wherever you are. And you can do it around your own house if that feels like the safest and best thing to do. And then once you've done that, the EP is about probably 18-20 minutes long. You can go back to the website and there will be a picture of the original 1845 petition for a shorter work day, as well as the names of the 2,000 young women. Most of them are 18 to 22 years old. So we're talking about young women here. And, young people have always been at the forefront of movements. And we've especially seen that in the last year, right? We have BYP 100. We have so many young activists on the ground. We have the young people who turned 18 in Georgia so they could vote in between the general election and the Senate runoff and helped get Warnock and Ossoff elected. We're seeing young people be at the forefront. And that was true in 1845, and it's true in 2021, and I think it'll always be true. And so you connect now, today, with those women in 1845 by picking a name of one of the 2,000 women and men who signed that petition back in 1845, and then you do your own signing wherever you are. So I could take this piece, and I could sign our friend Sarah Bagley. And then you take a picture, and we'll come up with a fun hashtag by the next time we are on the show. And so what you do is you'll post it to social media, and then hopefully what will accumulate over the course of March 8th, which is International Women's Day, is a virtual petition that is a re-signing of what happened in 1845, which for us is a completely multi-generational, across the country, across the world, whoever is able to see this and wants to participate, connection of women and people of all ages in the fight for gender equality. Because one of the reasons the show is still so horribly relevant is because we're not there yet. And this show and this event are there to remind us that we come from a long line of fighters, and that we've all got to keep fighting.
Yes. Oh, as you're talking, I'm like getting chills. I'm trying not to cry right here, but it's so everything is. Oh, it's just so. It's so. It has so much impact, and the story you're telling has so much power. And I just the relevancy and the urgency even of the story that you're telling is just, it's so important. I'm so grateful it's happening. If I wanted to learn more about this in the meantime, before the website goes live, where should I go?
You should follow us on Instagram. So we are just at MillGirls Musical, at MillGirls Musical, and we'll be posting updates as they come along.
Whew. I am so excited. Once again, I'm actually a little bit starstruck right now. I just want you to know. I think it is the coolest thing that is happening right now. Please, everybody, be on the lookout for MillGirls Musical information, the website, follow that Instagram. This is, I want to personally thank you for telling this story. I want to personally thank you for doing all of this work. I got into this with Bob 4 years ago now. It's actually probably our 4-year anniversary of this episode.
Yes.
And happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Lowell history is really important to me, and I think to our community, and it really, we always say it kind of reflects what was going on the national stage. And I'm so glad that this story is being brought to the forefront of the stage, and on the stage, right? Oh, so exciting. So thank you all so much for being here, for joining us today. And we'll see you on the next show. And thank you all for tuning in. This has been History in Lowell.
Cotton flies like spinning, 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 40, 1,